Hello DG lovelies, this is Neisha M, your geek mom, and Joe, coming to you from Diversely Geek Discusses, where we will talk about everything that makes up my geek universe, your geek universe, our geek universe, and really look at what it means to embrace your inner geek, express your inner geek, and then transform your fandom passion into positive action. I believe we are all part of one big, huge, amazing geek nation, perfectly imperfect, and I think our fandom passions really help us to learn who we are, identify, and become geek-amazing people. Welcome, join in, be part of our geek family. Hello, Diversely Geek lovelies. This is Neisha M, your geek mom, your CEO and co-founder of Diversely Geek, and this is another episode of Diversely Geek Discusses. And today we have the amazing Kevin Wood, artist extraordinaire, and for another episode of My Geek Universe. And coming to you from Gods and Monsters live here in Orlando, Florida, for their 4th anniversary. And as you guys know, with My Geek Universe, we have this candid, organic conversation with an amazing person who has embraced their inner geek, expressing it, and has completely transformed their life through that. And then they get to share that journey with us. So I am extremely honored to have Kevin Wood, artist extraordinaire, an artist with DC and Warner Brothers, I believe.
Yes.
Art Brand Studios,
Art Brand Studios. I am signed to Art Brand Studios, who licensed me to Warner Brothers and DC Comics.
Oh, wow. So, everyone in the entire world of Diversely Geek knows I'm a huge DC nerd. So, of course, that makes me very happy to have this opportunity to speak with you. We met a few years back at MegaCon in 2018, I believe.
Yep.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I was running past, as I always do, meeting people, and I think you guys might see it on one of my video captures. And I stopped dead in my tracks because I took one look at the artwork that Kevin had on display, and I was like, what? Lewis knows, because Lewis was with me at the time. I was like, what is this? This is absolutely breathtaking. And almost heartbreaking in a way, because I had never seen the DC characters represented in a humanistic form, as not in an anime or in a cartoon,
more comic
bookish form, and that's what you were presenting to us.
Yeah, more realism. You know, I'm what's considered a photorealism artist. So I do airbrush, mixed media with colored pencils and airbrush acrylics. So I work on canvas, illustration board, things of that nature. But what I do is I love to render characters based on real people. You know, and there's other artists that do the same thing. It's nothing new, but I am more a photo hyper-realist.
So what distinguishes that form or that genre of art from just realism, or even surrealism in a sense? What do you think is the most distinguishing factor?
Well, again, realism is more like rendering an image. So you can create something that gives a description of a character or whatever, and give it its actual colors, skin colors, uniform color, and balance it or paint it into a way where it does look real. It represents realism, but it's not realistic. So that's what realism kind of falls under. Maybe I'm saying it not all the way properly.
That's okay.
But photorealism gets into where you're creating more detail. You're going deeper into detail with reality. You're bringing out more reality with your characters.
So it's a deeper. For lack of a better, because I'm not in any shape or form aware or genius in this field, but Is it that you're creating almost like a mandala where you have multi dimensions of the experience of the realism?
Yeah, it's more like layers of you're delving into like accuracy in realism, where skin complexion, the texture of clothing.
Ooh.
You're putting that all into your artwork.
That's incredible.
Hair,
incredible.
Flaws in the skin,
Even in the skin
yeah,
texture.
like everything that your eyes see in reality, like that's being captured in a painting.
And that's what caught me when I first saw that first painting with you, were the eyes.
Right.
The fact that I could see multiple dimensions. I felt like I could see layer after layer after layer of the image of the eye just represented in that eye that you had created.
Right.
Yeah. So that's photorealism.
That's photorealism, yeah. And hyperrealism goes like above and beyond to the point where a painting, you'll never recognize the painting, the difference between a digital photograph and a painting.
Yeah,
like you can literally stand next to each other and you would not be able to tell which one is the painting or which one is the digital photo.
Wow.
So that's hyperrealism. Hyperrealism is where you spend months, maybe even a year, on one painting to capture every single conceivable detail of an image.
How long does an image take for you? Because you're creating it from a live model.
Yes, yeah. So some images have taken me 7 weeks. Most of the time 7 weeks to a few months. It just depends on the material, the subject.
7 weeks.
Yeah, 7 weeks, like 12 hours a day.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and that's what it takes.
No, I feel like that's not even enough. That's why I'm like, because I know the detail of the work, and I'm thinking, wow, that seems fast to me.
No. I mean, I guess it depends. Depends on who, depends on who's looking.
Depends on your eye.
Yeah, depends on who's looking, who's working on it. But
so when you're creating something like this type of masterful work, it's quite genius, actually. I can't wait for us to really get the full reveal, which is coming up soon.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yep.
Which we'll talk about it in a few minutes. San Diego Comic-Con.
Mm-hmm.
When you're creating something like this, does your imagination still have an impression on top of the realism?
Yeah. I see things, as I go into the painting. I see things I may want to change, improve on. Sometimes when I'm still in concept form, I'll obviously change what I'm my final, like what I thought was my final. I'll go back and change something, some element, some pose, maybe a different look or whatever, different expression on the face, but
because it's what made sense for what you're looking for.
Yeah.
To create.
Yeah. But how I go about it is I actually photograph people. So I find people who I want to use as a model, and depending on the character, I will try to find someone who fits the model, the description of the character as close as possible to what they may look like in reality. And then I'll set up a photo shoot. I'll do a photo shoot and take pictures, like maybe 200 shots of them. I'll spend a few days going through, all 200 shots until I can until I feel that this is the right composition. And then I'll create the composition based on that photograph or based on what I've already conceptualized in pencil or whatever. Right. But once I nail down the photograph or the look, the lighting and everything that I feel is best to represent the character, then I'll transfer that image to a canvas, and then that's when I go to town and I start painting.
Oh God, good Lord! Ooh, okay. Ooh. My brain is going because of my tendencies for detail. I would probably take 6 months to do what you're doing in 7 to 8 weeks.
It can take that. I mean, it's not always 7 to 8 weeks. It just depends.
Okay.
But it can go into months. It can go into 3-4 months, maybe even 6. Depends.
Wow.
Just depends on the subject.
So, you want to tell us a little bit about what we're going to be seeing from you at San Diego Comic-Con, and then after that we're going to look at the history of how you got to where you are today.
For San Diego Comic-Con, I've created a series of paintings based on 5 of the most powerful females of DC Comics. And I've titled them Fabulous 5.
Hey.
So, and that consists of Wonder Woman, Supergirl, and it's the new 52 Supergirl. So it's Rebirth Wonder Woman, New 52 Supergirl, Rebirth Vixen, Rebirth Hawkgirl, and Rebirth Starfire.
That's bringing a wealth of the DC history together.
Yeah. So my whole point of doing it is the reason why I picked the women is because I wanted to have these characters represent like empowerment of women, empowerment of
general,
women. Yeah. So I chose those 5 characters. I thought those would be for me anyway. Those would be the proper characters to present women of today.
So what will happen with this particular series? What is right now?
It'll be.
What's the rollout basically?
It'll be sold worldwide. First of all, in print form, collectible prints, limited edition Jaclays, canvases. I'm not sure what kind of merchandise they're talking about, but they're talking about using it for merchandise as well. Just a whole format of even things I'm not even aware of yet.
Yeah, that's usually how it works, though.
Right.
From what I understand from what you were telling me. Wow.
Yeah.
That's super incredible.
Yeah. So I'll be doing a signing both Thursday and Friday at the Art Brand Studios booth for this new series that they'll be releasing.
And that's also at San Diego Comic-Con as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and maybe even more.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I have more shows coming up. Silicon Valley in August, and in New York City Comic-Con in October.
So we'll be together at San Diego Comic-Con. Is working on a project together. I wish I could tell you, but it'll happen. I promise you. As soon as it does happen, I can't wait for us to get on and talk with the audience again, because I think it's going to be super thrilling.
Yeah, I'm excited.
And very revelational. So if that didn't get you in suspense, I don't know. And then we'll be together again in New York Comic-Con. So you're going to be doing the same type of work in terms of the rollout in New York?
Yeah. The studio, again, they're looking to use all 3 of these platforms, the Comic-Con platforms for this year to present my work, as a, I guess, new artist for them.
So amazing.
But they're really pushing the advertisement for, this release that I created. And I'm excited about it.
Wow. 2 years.
3.
It's 3 because you had already been working on
Yeah, I've been working on this for 3 years.
When I met you 2 years ago, you had 2 done.
I think I had 2 in concept
2
form.
done. Yes. Yeah.
But I had to go. There was some rejections over the year. Had to start over again with guidelines that I was not aware of. Then had to reshoot models all over again. Had to find new faces all over again. Oh, it was a big deal.
Oh.
Yeah. So this wasn't an easy process. Yeah, I went through a lot of red tape.
So I was really trying to bring to light, and normally with one of our MGUs to my audience, we're really going in depth into the person's history, and we really will. I just kind of wanted Kevin to help us to understand that there's so many idiosyncrasies to achieving this level of contract work with something like Art Brand Studios, with DC and Warner Brothers, and that things are achievable. But sometimes they don't work, and then you have to do it again.
Well, anything's achievable. You just have to grit your teeth, man, and seriously just shut everything out and just believe in yourself. I can't stress that anymore. You have to really. You just have to go into being someone else or go into another zone, because it's like the real world doesn't exist anymore. You can't go by what people are saying or what people are telling you, or even the things that you've seen in the past 100 times.
Right.
It doesn't apply to you. You have to make up your own rules and just do your own thing.
For yourself, for your own sense of free
will. If you want to achieve something that's greater than what you're doing, you got to create your own world until you get there. You do. You have to. You've got to push through all these barriers, and that's an understatement. It's just that you have to be seriously tenacious and just believe and know, even if it's not there, you don't see it. It's just so many factors, but you got to do it. No matter how bad it gets, you just got to keep doing it because you know it's going to happen, and that's it. And it did.
And I'm so happy.
I was told so many times to quit. After all the rejection letters came back, with the guidelines and everything, people were like, just stop. It's like, it's too much work. They're not going to be satisfied. And I just, even I knew, I felt like maybe they wouldn't, but I just kept doing it. Because
did you have this gut instinct, or you knew you wanted to get to that point
I knew
of
I could beat that. I knew I could beat those odds.
That's a hard place to be.
Well, that's what I mean. You got to put yourself there. But I knew I could beat those odds.
You had already been through a really tough, for one. I mean, I can certainly use other words, but we'll go with that for the moment. You had really been through a very tough journey, even to get to the point to where you could get this concept to them.
Yeah.
Do you feel comfortable sharing whatever you feel comfortable sharing?
Yeah, share whatever you want.
Well, it's your personal journey, and I want kids of all ages from 3 to 103. We're all children at heart, and we all have a dream, and I want everyone to know that any dream can still be achievable. We just have to know that we're okay and we're enough inside of ourselves, and once we believe it, which, my goodness, is the hardest thing to get to, is to have that self-belief.
Yeah.
That it is possible to get to that place.
It's very possible. I mean, anyone can get there, but again, it has to come from you first.
So, what were your strongest influencers, say from the fandom world, or something that you were really passionate about growing up that really helped to spark your imagination and to say, hey, I think this is the life I want to have?
What influenced me, maybe? Okay. Well, I grew up on fantasy artist Boris Vallejo. Okay, so Boris Vallejo and Frank Frazetta were my go-to. Yeah. Since the first time I think I saw one of their paintings on the cover of Eerie and Creepy, the old comic books from back in the 70s.
Yeah.
I was just fascinated about the realism on how they did these characters. And how did they look so real? They weren't. I was collecting comic books since I was a kid, but
nothing like that.
But nothing like that. It's the reality of these characters was so dynamic and so realistic. I don't know. It just sparked my interest. My mom was an artist. My mom's an artist, and even from the time I was 4, she would oil paint. I would watch her oil paint, and I would try to mimic what she's doing, but I would try to mimic it in pencil. And she noticed that I would try to copy her style while she's painting on the canvas, but with a pencil. So long story short, she nourished all of that. She helped me, get into it deeper. And not that I needed help, but she just made sure I stayed in it. And
she nurtured your passion.
Yeah.
She nurtured this imagination, this dream, and this hopefulness that you had.
Yeah, she fed me a lot of, and I mean mentally, books and, references, books on human anatomy, animal anatomy.
She knew to do that.
Yeah,
wow.
I was 5 years old.
Wow. Okay, mind blown, people. That is the epitome. I'm going to digress for 2 seconds. That is literally the epitome of the diversely geek philosophy and postulate. The fact is, I have always said that if you train a child from womb throughout their existence in imbuing a positive sense of hope and self-belief, that and the imagination will flare, it will grow, and it will flourish. Yeah. So it's a beautiful dichotomous and multi-dimensional relationship, because people influence you. But wow, your mom got it. Your mom got it.
She did.
Really was great.
She did.
Positive.
She did. And my mother, I would say, I was in the Navy. I spent some years in the Navy, so I went overseas. I was always drawing, but it was probably, I went to Hawaii in 1988, 1989, 89, and I guess when we came back to the West Coast, I noticed someone was like using an airbrush on a T-shirt, and I had never seen this before. And like they're painting a unicorn on a T-shirt with this little tool that was hooked up to a cord, and I'm like, what is that?
With their hand.
Yeah, but there's nothing coming out. There's nothing coming out, but yet this image is like coming on this shirt. I'm like, what is that? And I don't know, the lady, I don't know, I think she was like from a whole nother country, but she didn't speak English well. So I didn't want to bother her while she was talking, while she was working. But the point is, I knew to scope out the equipment. I knew obviously it had to be some type of art equipment. So I waited till I got back to New York. I told my mother about it, and she bought me my first airbrush gun for my birthday.
I love your mother. There we go. Oh my goodness, incredible.
Yeah. So when she brought me my first gun, I say within 6 months I had it mastered.
How old were you at that time?
20.
How did you nurture the artistic design, creative sense while you were in the Navy? I mean, because that was a jump. Now we went from 5 to 20.
Yeah. Okay. Well, throughout all those years, I mean, I've always been drawing. I mean, I used to get in trouble in school for drawing, but from single digits to being 20, I mean, it's something that I did as a hobby. This was never a career. This wasn't even a thought in my head as a career. This was just a simple hobby that I would do in school. I mean, I even got beaten up for it in elementary school because, kids were jealous. They would take my work, they would cut my signature off the corners and say they did it. I've been jumped because I could paint, It's all kinds of craziness. I mean, but you get through that stuff, and going into the Navy, once they found out I could paint, they would have me like do type paintings for like the captain's, the quarterdeck, or the captain's quarters or whatever.
Whoa.
They even created a graphic design department on my boat. I was on an aircraft carrier, and they created a graphic design department because of me, because I could draw, and they never had that before.
Oh my God. Did that continue?
Yeah, it did. Yeah, even after I got out.
You sparked change, man.
Yeah.
You made something.
I know it sounds
happen.
Crazy, but it's the truth. I was aboard the Dwight D. Eisenhower.
Oh goodness gracious! Look at this. You made change.
Yeah.
That in and of itself is just stupendous.
Yeah, they had a little graphic design place that were doing like newspapers, but they upgraded it big time once they found out about what I could do.
Wow.
And they really made it big. Like they made a real graphic design department on the ship.
Is that something that happened in other ships, or was that specific?
And today that's the standard now. Yeah, like every ship.
Guys, I mean, whoa! Transforming fandom passion into positive action. Okay, I think we already hit all three. Show is over. Done. Oh my God! I think we are just wow. Did you ever think about that?
I do. I still think about it today, and I'm just like, I mean, you talk about stuff like that, and you hear it from someone that's not known, they think you're full of it. You know what I mean? So I only tell, like, people that know me well, they know. But it's not something that you run around saying, because people, like I said, they just think you're crazy.
You changed the mindset of an entire military,
yeah, I redid the logo for the Seabees.
Yeah, I know. Okay.
Yeah, I redid their logo in 1990.
Kevin. There's just so many layers to that onion that we are just. Woo!
Well, I've got a lot more than that.
Oh my God. So they were nurturing during your time in the Navy. Did you find that it was difficult? Did bullying continue all the way through that time?
Oh, no. The bullying didn't happen in the Navy. That was high school.
Oh, but it was through high school.
Yeah, it was high school, elementary school.
That's another show. That's actually something that we do address here. Obviously, with Diversely Geek, it's about helping to create a language of unity, but of also self-value, and to help to understand why bullying is just not something that's acceptable in any shape or form, right? Did it mold you differently? Did it affect how you look, your outlook on life?
Well, I'll be honest with you. I mean, I got real good at fighting. You know, I mean,
Okay.
I learned how to defend myself to the point where nobody bothered me again.
Well, that's what you have to do.
So
sometimes we have to just defend ourselves to be able to exist.
Yeah, it got to that point.
Although I'm not advocating fighting. This is a different story. This was very situational, and it made sense for you at the time.
Yeah.
But I understand, because I grew up at the same time. You know, we're age cohorts here, and I certainly get what it is to be on the other side of the not so love relationship. So so after you exited.
Okay, so after I exited the military, I went into the music industry. So I created the album cover for Busta Rhymes, Leaders of the New School.
Yep.
Time, The Inner Mind's Eye. That was my design. I created that logo and the album cover.
Was that one of the first?
That was his second album.
That was his second album. Right.
Yeah, the second album for Leaders of the New School. I created the album cover.
I actually have that.
You have that?
I do.
Okay. What else did I do?
That's Busta Rhymes, for God's sakes.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you, okay. Oh, my God. Innovation and talk about, you were at the beginning. Just even designing the graphic design, which were actually extremely well received at the time. I knew that because they were completely different from what anybody else was doing.
Yeah. No one was really doing it
Not at
like
all.
that.
Not at all.
They
were all using pictures.
Yeah. So I did the album cover, and then I worked with Queen Latifah for about almost 3 years as her art director, assistant art director to art director, under her mother, the late Rita Owens. She passed away. Yeah, so her mom literally walked me into Flavor Unit. After she met me on the street, she saw my artwork, and she brought me in the next day as her assistant art director. And then I stayed there for 3 years, and then I went on to Def Jam, Island Def Jam, and worked with Jay-Z. I worked with LL, and I helped design the
I know somebody
cover.
on the other side of this camera is going nuts right now. So just letting you guys know. Yes.
So I also designed the album cover for Music Soul Child. I should say helped. The Akezia Grigsby, she was my art director. So I was actually her intern, and we both sat up one night and designed the cover for Music Soul Child.
That wasn't, that was till...
that was 2001.
That was still...
That was, 1999.
What was the form of art that we're talking about? It wasn't anywhere near realism.
It wasn't. Still, it was like... We did like glue and like glitter and stuff like that.
Yeah, because it was street art, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's like graffiti.
It was doing like graffiti.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so wow, what a move.
Yeah, so it was pretty cool, to sit there and like watch her.
Didn't you get to work in black and whites as well?
Black and whites
versus color. Everything you did was in color.
Well, I started in black and white with pencil. Everything I did was in pencil until I started airbrushing. Once I started airbrushing, everything was in color.
Because I know some artists will go straight to color.
Yeah, it depends. Some artists just stick to pencil. There are a lot of artists now today that are just pencil artists that they don't want to transition to color.
They don't do the layers.
Yeah, and they're great. They're like great, charcoal, graphite,
Yeah, I have some at home.
Mm-hmm.
Charcoal is an amazing medium.
Yeah, it is. A lot of people like my black and white pencil work over my airbrush work. So,
well, I do. I have a very strong affinity for black and white because I believe that it's a very strong message that it sends.
Right.
So, wow. Okay. So after you had achieved that level and Queen Latifah, okay. So what happened then, or what was was there a moment in your career or in you personally where you thought, okay, this is maybe not where I want to be. This is actually where I want to be. This is what I want to do.
You mean as far as my art?
In terms of your art.
Well, I knew I didn't want to do graphic design. I hated graphic design.
Okay.
I actually tried to start a animation department at Island Def Jam, but they weren't having it. So that's when I moved out of New York, moved to Florida.
I'm considering that. I'm sorry. I'm not sure that the jive of that, but okay.
Well, it would have worked. Honestly, a lot of the artists wanted it. They thought it would be pretty cool to have an animation department at the record label, versus farming it out to an animation studio. So, but they weren't willing to spend the money for it.
So then from there you went on to...
So then I went on to just freelancing on my own. I tried to get into... I wanted to get into doing creature and character designs for movies. So I wanted to go to Full Sail, but couldn't afford it at the time. And then I decided to move to California and take animation classes there in Hollywood, which I did that. But once I got into the industry, just for a very short time, I realized that's not where I wanted to be. I didn't want to be caught up in a cubicle or working for a studio. You know what I mean? Because even though you're doing all this awesome work for this movie or this, production, right, it's like you're still pigeonholed to work what they want you to work on. You can't work on your own creativity. You can't work on what's in your imagination. So, I have friends that work at Marvel Studios and all the other studios, and they're doing well, but some of them do tell me it's like they would love to be able to just jump back on their own personal work,
Right, I could see
and
that.
they can't because they're 24/7. Like, they're literally 5 years into a schedule of films that are coming out in the next 5 years that they're working on now, and they can't take any breaks from that. They can't deviate from that at all.
Wow.
And that's good. If there's a lot of artists that they pursue, they want to get there. They achieve to get to that moment, that point in life, which is fine. But for me, I like my freedom to where I can paint and create any character, or render paintings of any character I want to.
Did you feel an affinity towards the comic book world or towards the Marvel or DC world?
Well, I grew up on Marvel.
Right?
I grew up on Marvel since I was in my single digits. DC I also enjoyed, but something about Marvel, I just that was my thing. It still is today, but I enjoy the DC characters as well. And
I hope so.
Oh yeah. Well, my series is DC. So,
I know that. I'm like, you're creating them, so you must enjoy them because they're amazing. So.
Yeah. But the influence of I just enjoy doing a lot of realism, human anatomy, dynamic motion, dynamic movements, meshing creature and human anatomy together, just like sci-fi stuff.
I was going to say this is pure sci-fi and even horror in a sense, right?
Right. So that was my liking. That's what I enjoyed the most.
Wow.
I never went to art school. A lot of people ask me that.
I know. You don't have to.
No, I just never did. I taught it all to myself.
You were self-taught.
Yeah. Yep.
But you used the books to be able to.
Oh, definitely read the books.
Lines.
Read books. Watch. If there was such thing as videos to watch back then. But I learned everything from watching other people, reading books. Just doing my own lessons. Even drawing out of comic books and bodybuilding magazines.
Wow. Yeah, I've heard a lot about bodybuilding.
Yeah, learning the anatomy of the human body.
And then your mom was
My mom was a registered nurse, so a lot of her medical stuff, I would look at that too.
I love your mom even more now because you guys know I am a nurse practitioner. So hey, Mom, I feel you. No wonder I like this kid. I'm telling you. Okay, she was raised by a me.
Yeah, I was.
I don't know if my kids would say that, but hey.
Yeah, for sure.
Wow. What was the toughest moment for you? And during that time, well, sometimes we talk about how there's something that you're very passionate about, a fandom that you love, whether it's art or literary or character or story. Was there something that you refer to that helped to pull you out of it? Even if it was just faith, you mean
out of a hard moment?
Yeah, hard time.
I don't know. I know it's going to sound corny, but I watched a lot of Thundercats.
Yes!
And
I was hoping you'd say that.
Yeah, okay. And in that era, that was like the pinnacle of giving positive positive thoughts to a lot of kids, you know, because their metaphor was, you know, truth, honor, justice, loyalty. You know what I mean? And every episode of that series was based on something positive. You know, it always gave some sort of positive feedback to the viewer, you know, about friendship, about trust, about you know, responsibility, not judging people. You know, and I learned that at home, but watching that cartoon, that particular series of cartoons, that really resonated with me somehow. And the fact that I would always just stay home, draw. Like I would just I didn't go outside to play in the snow. You know, I hated the cold, first of all. I couldn't stand going out in the snow. But I would stay home, just paint, draw, you know, and only not airbrush, but just like do like watercolors, like, you know, the watercolor set back in the day. I tried that, didn't work out. So I stuck to pencil and didn't even use crayon, just pencil. Yeah, just straight pencil. So I would always draw everything in pencil. But I would stay in it like 24/7. My mom would have to make me stop to come eat and take a shower and, you know, do your homework and, you know, go outside and play. Stop, you know, you're in here drawing too much.
Your imagination get the better of you, huh?
It did. It had me locked away.
Had you locked away. But that can happen. You know, it's one of the things I also like to kind of touch on, too, is sometimes you get extremely hyper-vigilant or hyper-engaged in something, and that is not always the healthiest of things to do.
And it got to that point where I knew it's like, okay, let me kind of like, you know, ease up on it a little bit. But it never left. I mean, I've worked for Grumman. I've worked for, you know, some weapon systems coming out of the Navy. I worked for JFK Airport. I was a fueler for, you know, a lot of aviation. I'm an aviation mechanic myself. You know, went to school for that. Avionics, you know, but I was always drawing. And it wasn't until 2015 that I graduated from aviation school.
Well, I was wondering, why did you decide to try something different?
What do you mean?
In avionics.
Well, avionics, I was always a nerd when it came to like electronics and gadgets and everything.
Yep.
So even at 8 years old,
Gadget.
yeah. So at 8 years old, I was always trying to invent something. I was always putting something together. I would use my mom's appliances, and you know, she would kick my behind. You know, I use her brand new fan as a turbine. You know what I mean? And she's like, "Where's my new fan?" And I'm like, "Oh, it's in the basement." And she's like, "Oh, that's nice. Hey, come here." You know, and so I would get it. You know.
Ooh, sorry. We don't do that today. However, it was very common in our day.
Yeah, that was our day. Yeah. But,
oh my God.
So instead of breaking me out of it, she nurtured that also. So she would put me in science fairs and you know, so I would win all the time. I even created something that like cooks hot dogs with electric current.
Ooh.
One time I blew the whole house out, you know, with like, you know, oversurging the power box.
Okay. Oh. Cheers. Oh goodness, this guy, I'm telling you, you're killing me. I love it though. I just love it.
It was fun.
Your mom was like your one, I would say, strongest supporter.
Well, my mother raised 5 of us by herself.
So you didn't have a father figure at the time?
Nope. I'm kind of glad, you know, but at the same time, you know, my mom was my father.
Why not?
Yeah, she didn't play, so, you know.
Well, we're from a different era, a different time. So discipline for us and self-discipline and external discipline were a different thing than they are. Did you feel like you were able to, so with the mom and growing up in the situation you did, and her having a career, did you feel like you learned a sense of discipline?
Oh, big time. Oh, yeah. Discipline is not the word. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we stay out of trouble, you know, so.
But self-discipline as in also being able to follow through on something.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. For myself, yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You know, from growing up with my mom to going into the Navy and just, you know, and just learning life on my own. You know, you crash course it.
Yeah. Especially in the era that we grew up, you know, and in the environment that we were growing up in. What part of New York? Right?
Long Island.
Yeah, Long Island, right?
Long Island.
What part of the island?
Freeport.
Freeport.
Yeah, Nassau County.
Man, I know it well. my family lives in Nassau County today, close to Belmont. So hey.
Okay. Yeah.
And then funny story. My brother, two of my brothers were avionics mechanics as well.
Okay.
One still today. One worked with Delta for like 27 years. So I know the field well.
Mm-hmm.
We have 3 generations of airline
aviation people.
So it's what happens, you know.
Yeah.
So that took you to then. At some point, you said, "Okay, art may not be my calling in life. I love it, but I have to do something else for a career."
Well, that's the thing. I never saw art being a calling in my life. Never. It was never, ever, like zero.
Wow.
It wasn't even on my radar as a calling. It was just a hobby. Like straight up hobby. It was never meant to be a career, anything. It was never meant. I shouldn't say it never meant because it's actually happening, but it was never in my sights.
In your intentions.
Yeah, it was never a goal of mine to become an artist, to make a living as an artist. I went to school for aviation, avionics, and wanted to be an engineer, all this other good stuff. That was my thing.
So you had a dual passions going on because you were a huge science nerd.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, your form of artwork is extremely science-driven in some sense because you had to have some geography, some kind of structure to how you did things in order to create the realism.
I guess.
In my brain, that's what I'm thinking. Maybe I'm wrong. But.
Well, I never really had to map anything out. I could just look at something and draw and copy it.
Wow.
That's
visual memory.
Yeah, that's the best way I can describe it.
Yep, photographic memory, visual memory.
I never used a grid. I couldn't understand the grid thing, like the grid process. Like I even tried it. I'm like, what is this? Like, it doesn't even work for me. So I would just freehand everything, and it would come out looking exactly the way it would in reality. And that was the way I did it.
So that's a really strong neurochemical process that the body is able to physiologically tap in to learned memory. So here I'm going all science nerd
that's
on you.
Fine.
Sorry, it's you guys know I'm neuro. So, and unfortunately, we don't use 60% of the function of the brain, but your brain was able to tap into that, which is a lot of why you were a science nerd at the same time. It's what I'm saying. It's the same neural pathways.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, I guess if you explain it like that, because
no, art and science and math go hand in hand.
Mm-hmm.
That's what STEAM is: science, technology, engineering, art, and math.
Okay.
That's why they created the acronym, because they go hand in hand in terms of the learning process of the brain and how we structure and create.
Nice. Okay.
That's what it is. Woo!
Well, I learned something new.
Brain STEAM lesson today, guys. Here we go. All right. So, here you are. You've moved along and you've worked in avionics for a certain amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah. I went to the Navy and did a little bit after the Navy at JFK Airport. And
so when did the thought process happen? When did you just switch
with the art?
Flip the switch.
So in 2003, I made my first attempt at trying to go the career of art. Okay, and I approached Warner Brothers back then, and they completely rejected me. Like it was no all the way. No. I did something again. I did something that was a product that was under their umbrella, but they rejected it. So I just I didn't give up on it, but I just put it aside, and I just continued. I also drove like heavy equipment, like big rigs, So I've done that too.
Bad on the back. Just saying.
Yeah. So I did that, drove tractor trailers for a good amount of time as well. Made good money with that. Supported, myself, and at the time I had a family back then.
Right.
But that's what I did. And then I did art on the side. I would airbrush, bikes, cars. I would do like a lot of custom work, like local shops here in Orlando. So I made a lot.
At some point, you went from New York to Orlando, right?
Yeah.
Just like the rest of us,
yeah,
by the way.
Exactly. Yeah,
Mass exodus.
2001, I moved to Florida.
mass exodus. It's what happened in a 10-year period of time. A whole bunch of us said transplant.
So it's like the South New York of the South.
All the South and Long Island people came over to Orlando. That's what happened. Try out a new accent.
Some people from the Bronx too. You know?
That's true. I am a Queens girl, so my New York accent definitely comes out when I'm speaking to the right people.
Me too.
Because I know you don't have it, and I listen carefully to you. I'm like, okay, Kevin, that accent is going to come out someday.
You just got to get to know me a little bit better.
It's the same. You can't tell. And that's also part of the culture that we grew up in, the social culture that of the area that you were and I were, because we were like neighbors.
Right. It wasn't too far from Queens.
There was a fitting in type of thing that we had to do. Yeah, when you're a person of color growing up in an area that can easily be predominantly not accustomed to our persons of colors, you really learn to live life in a different way. How did you feel? Were you comfortable? Did you have any concerns
in Long Island?
Issues?
Oh no, I didn't catch any racism until I went into the Navy.
Interesting.
Yeah, I didn't even.
You didn't even know it existed.
I didn't even know it existed. I went to high school with every walk of life in Long Island, and I didn't know any. There were real differences until I went into the United States Navy.
That's not a conversation for today. However, I do think I understand. So I do.
Yeah. It was some kind of awakening.
It was an awakening.
Oh yeah.
So, in 2003, you made this decision to try. You had the rejections.
Yeah, so I had the rejections. I went back on to truck driving, and then in the mid 2000s, from 2006 till I left Florida in 2009, I was airbrushing bikes, tanks, hoods, car hoods, like race cars, things like that. I just made, I made a good reputation as an artist, as a local artist, just airbrushing. Custom airbrushing.
Here in Orlando?
Yeah, here in Orlando.
Wow.
Yeah, so I did a lot of custom art, custom airbrushing. I even made the celebrity status as far as like airbrushing bikes for some celebrity bike builders.
Wow.
Carlos Mencia.
No.
Okay, well, Carlos Mencia, he's a comedian.
Oh, okay.
And I airbrushed a number of bikes for him for his stand-up, for his tours.
Oh, wow.
And the bike builder, his name is Jerry Covington, Covington Cycles. He flew me out to airbrush the first bike that I did for Carlos.
So that's incredible. Again, a real quick stop here. As we start to get ready to wrap up, your passion or your talent or your skill can be manifested in so many different ways. Who would have ever thought that that's what you would do? Or that you could be, transforming your art into the airbrushing of a custom vehicle? Or that you would be doing graphics in the Navy? There's just, you've really opened the mind up right now and stimulated to the fact that art belongs everywhere.
Yeah, it can happen. You can do it anywhere, for almost anything.
And that's for an absolute one of the lessons I was hoping to be able to bring out. Do you feel that it's what would your life have been like if you didn't have the art? If you turned that off and said, I'm not going to do that?
Well, I know I would have definitely been like, I would have probably considered myself the Black Tony Stark, because I was really into like high tech stuff. You know what I mean? So
yes,
I was always like inventing things and trying to come up with like crazy tech stuff. I wanted to be an engineer. I wanted to invent like wicked stuff.
And you can still do that.
Oh yeah, I know, but I love my art.
It's okay. They just flip roles for a little bit of time.
Yeah, and right? I can buy drones and stuff and mess around with that.
Okay, that's fine. I mean? So then you got to that place, and you have to jump now from the mid 2000s to the place where you're.
So the place where I'm at today.
Yeah.
Okay, so in 2016, I decided to give it one more shot as far as like the art and see if I could turn this into a career. Even though I was doing well with the aviation, I just wanted to try one more time. from 2003. It just dawned on me. I'm like, you know what? Like, whatever happened to that whole Warner Brothers thing? And it's just like, you know what? I should do it once more. One more. And ironically, the local gallery here in Orlando, City Arts Factory. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the director found out about me through Sam Flax.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So they found out about me through Sam Flax Art Supply Store and asked me if I would be willing to do a painting for the premiere of Batman vs. Superman.
Whoa! Oh wow!
So I said yes to it, and they just wanted me solo as a solo artist to do this whole thing. But I asked them if I could run it and put the show together with their help. But if I can invite other artists who are trying to get exposed, because I'm growing exposure already. So I did the painting of Henry Cavill as Superman, and you saw that painting.
Yep.
So that painting was used for the actual premiere for Batman vs. Superman. So from there, I decided, you know what, since I did this painting, I should take it to Warner Brothers and see if I can get signed once more, because there's a lot of characters that I would like to work on that are under their licensing that I can't touch. And I know that the second I do it and put it online, I'm going to get sued. So the best way to avoid that is to go up there and make them give you a contract.
Okay.
And that's pretty much what happened.
And you were able to garner that support and that the positive feedback because you had done the Henry Cavill piece. Or because of the wealth of what you've done up until that moment?
They didn't care about that.
Oh, they didn't. Okay.
No, they could care less about that. They didn't. In fact, they didn't even want the painting. They didn't even want it in their studio because they felt it was legalities of Henry's likeness. They didn't want it in their studio because Henry, quote unquote, didn't approve of. Have a painting of him.
Right, I understand that.
Yeah, and that was cool
totally
too. I met
understand
Henry, and he loved the painting. But during the meeting with Warner Brothers, I spoke to a certain gentleman up there, and he's in the merchandise department. Long story short, I took the painting with me, met with this guy. His name is Chaz Fitzhugh, and we talked and told him exactly. He's like, so what do you want? Like, what do you think we can do for you, or what can you do for us? And I just had to put it out there clear, and the thing is, he basically challenged me, which made me, I had to say it, but he said, your artwork is great, but you're no Alex Ross.
Your nettle went up. Yay!
So I had to turn up the volume on him, and I told him, well, Alex Ross wasn't Alex Ross either when he walked in this door. So, if you can sign people who are unknown back then, I said, you can sign me now. And that was it. That was literally what happened. And they called Art Brand Studios. They called a few other studios who are like third party that license, artists to work under their licensing. And the second hit, Art Brand, Lynn Hoffman, she's the VP. She saw my work and she chased me down for a year.
Wow, she chased you down for a year.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Because they wanted to test me out. They asked me if I could do something with Batman. So I did a Batman concept for supposed to be Ben Affleck's solo Batman, which is now Robert Pattinson.
Right.
Okay, but back then it was Ben Affleck.
Right.
So I did a pencil sketch, a pencil final of Ben Affleck with Deathstroke, and as if it was a movie poster, but it was all in black and white.
Okay.
So I sent that back to them, and that's when they immediately signed me, gave me a agreement of confidentiality.
Right.
And then a few months later, they brought me in. I think that December of 2017, they brought me back to California, and I signed my contract. And I got my actual contract, and that wasn't made it official.
So I met you before all this happened.
Yeah, you did.
And here we are again, a year after.
Mm-hmm.
A year and a half.
A year and a half. Yeah, about that.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm losing track of time. It's going by so fast.
That's okay. We're old, buddy. It's okay.
But
age happens.
But that's what happened, and I'm saying this not to say it was easy. It's just that what I'm not trying to say, what I am saying is that it didn't happen easy. It happened because I kept pushing it. I kept pushing it. I just didn't go there that day, and it happened. This guy Chaz ignored me for like 7 months, calling, emailing him. He totally ignored me, and then he challenged me to come out there to show him this one painting, but they weren't flying me out there. He said, "You come out here on your own dime."
Yep.
He's like, if I have time to see you, I'll see you. If I don't have time, he said, you wasted your own money coming out here.
Wow.
And then we finally met up.
Harsh.
And, he was very harsh. He was extremely harsh. I mean, to be told to your face, like your work's not going to go anywhere because you have no name.
Whew.
And then they rejected the concept art that I sent to them the first time. They rejected all 5 of them. And said the work is great, but it's not what we want. And that's when some people were telling me just to stop. They were like, just give up. And I didn't. I spent the next year and a half on just going at it, and then they got all 5 of them got approved.
Whew. My God.
And so now here I am.
Here you are.
Yep.
And we're a month away from your debut of the full concept art.
The full final art.
The final. I mean, I've seen the piece I just saw recently.
Yeah. The 3 that you saw, those were 3 out of the 5 finals.
Right. So.
And they allowed me to show those 3 just to see what type of response, it would get.
What was your audience response?
They were loving it. Oh, people wanted to buy prints right then and there.
I know. I signed up ages ago.
Yeah, I remember.
I was on your list forever ago for when they came out.
Yeah, and when I did the first concepts, those were the first ones they wanted to see if they tested well. And then they rejected those.
Even though they tested well.
Yeah, they did. They
great.
rejected them because the guidelines weren't.
Okay, and I get that. I really do understand that part because you're it's realism.
Well, they love the realism. It's the fact that they didn't want Wonder Woman from the movie. They wanted Wonder Woman from Rebirth comic book. Right. They didn't want Supergirl from the TV show. They wanted Supergirl from the comic book. So even though they wanted the comic book character, they still wanted them realistic. So those were the guidelines that I had to follow.
That's why you had to search out the 5 models that you were able to
find. Right. And then the fact that the models I used the first time, they said they were way too old. They didn't fit the description.
I remember that.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah, so all of that was just like,
I do not approve, Warner Brothers.
And these women were not old. They were like in their 20s and 30s.
They were in their late 20s, early 30s. And I'm sitting here going, okay.
And the thing is,
they're
supposed to represent women, like women, But they were like, oh, nope, they're too old. Yeah, we want somebody in their early 20s. I'm like, and then Supergirl, they forced me to.
Well, they required you to.
Okay, they required. Yeah, it was a requirement. Yes, they required that Supergirl be 17.
Because of the age cohort from the.
True, but I had to go out and find a 17-year-old girl.
Yeah, I get that.
What does that look like?
Yeah, I understand. But it was a job, so I'm hoping that made life a little easier for you.
No, it was.
God.
Yeah, it was good. But I found someone that I knew. She's an awesome young lady. Her name is Rainey, and she turned out to be the best Supergirl ever.
Because I know your original Supergirl, so now I'm waiting to see the new one because I don't think I did.
Maybe I did.
Yeah, yes, we did.
Yeah,
yes, we did. That was the one that was a make fun.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so...
Yeah, so those are the finals. So those are the ones that were fully approved.
This is literally a teeny little synopsis. I mean, there was so much more we could have covered today, which we can't because we do have a shorter show. I'm hoping in the future that you'll be on. I hope we did good.
Mm-hmm.
So that we can go a little bit more into the detail of the challenge. Because I think people really need to understand that the challenge, there's a beginning to it, there's a middle, and then there's an end, but that's that one challenge. And then there's...
Yeah, and then there's many more.
We're always going to face another one, but that doesn't mean that we're shut down.
Well, the thing I want to make clear to everyone is that anything can be obtained. You can capture anything. You can get yourself into anything. Anyone can buy a Lamborghini. Anyone can buy a $200 million house. Can you keep it? Can you maintain it?
Is it what you want?
Well, if it's what you want, sure. But the process, the thing is, if you want a certain career or a certain lifestyle, fine, you can get it. But can you keep it? Can you hold on to it? That's
Yeah.
where the work is. The work is not getting it. That's the easy part, to be honest with you. It's, can you hold on to that? Can you work through all the crap that you have to maintain this?
Right. Maintenance and sustenance.
Yeah, because it's not going to be easy just because it's in your lap now. Now you have to work to keep it. And a lot of people don't have that discipline. They won't because they think now that they've reached this point in their life, now they can
Right.
relax.
And that's why I highlighted discipline earlier on, because in the long run, you were able to rely on and springboard off of the discipline that you learned from a childhood.
Well, I learned a lot of discipline just growing up in life.
That's
You know, that's a whole other story, but
it is. Growing up in a family of 5, like growing up in a family of 1,000, like for me. No, 6 plus so many others. Well, thank you so much for being on today. I am so happy that you gave us your time.
Oh,
and
thanks for
especially
having me.
since we did this before you have your reveal. I can't wait for San Diego Comic-Con.
Yeah, it's going to be good. So I'm looking forward to it.
I can't wait. There's so many things that we want to tell you that we cannot tell you. But once the show is over, I'm hoping we come back and we can kind of talk over some things that we're going to be doing together and what's going to be happening with your reveal. So that's, again, am I building the suspense enough for you? I am so trying to build suspense. You gotta come back. Okay. Yes, everyone knows I'm a very nerd mom and I can be very boisterous.
That's awesome. That's great.
So, any last words you want to give to the audience, based on some of what we've talked about? Anything?
As always, just, always believe in what you do, never let anyone talk you out of your dream. It's yours. It's yours. It's not your parents. It's not your dads. It's not your brothers or your friends. It's yours. It's your thing. And you only got one life to capture it. So, just don't give up. That's it.
One life. This moment is the only moment you have right now.
Yep.
So use it wisely and use it well.
Yeah.
Love yourself. Believe in yourself.
Absolutely.
Support yourself and follow your dream, because as cheesy as it sounds,
No, it's true. You got to run it down. No one's going to run it down for you.
When I
you
met
have to chase
Kevin
it.
years ago, the DG company as who we weren't where we are today, and everything it builds in the time that it needs to build, and it will manifest in a way that it needs to manifest. And yeah, those challenges are certainly not going to be easy, but
No.
I am so excited that we had this conversation. Thank you so much, Kevin, for being on today.
You're welcome.
And thank you so much, DG Lovelies, for being with us. I will definitely be bringing this wonderful gentleman back to you again, and hopefully some of his friends. He knows some of the most awesome people. I mean, and like chills, okay? So I'm hoping that'll happen, and looking forward to seeing all of you with the coverage that we have leading up to and at San Diego Comic-Con 50th anniversary 2019. And as always, much love, much support from the DG family. And this guy belongs to the family now. I claim him. It just happens. It's the way it is. And you guys take care of yourself, love one another, and remember that love is universal.